My name is Steve. Welcome to my shop and Shark Bits number 33. In this edition of Shark Bits, I'm going to follow up on a previous project. We're going to open some material that I just got in and set up for some future projects. Got a lot to cover, so let's get started. Wanted to do a little follow-up on my last video, which was the chemical blackening and the heat blackening of the T-nuts that I had made in the previous video. And so what I did is that you will have seen in the last video where I chemical blackened 4 and heat blackened 2, and I'll just bring you in a little closer. I got a lot of very nice positive comments on them, a lot of questions, and after doing the blackening process, I soaked them in an oil that was also from Caswell, the same company that I used the chemicals from. And after letting that dry, I actually hadn't been out in the shop for almost a week, so they dried for nearly a week. And when I came out to look at them again, they had a flat colored film on them. And so what I did, I polished them up with this microfiber towel, and I put a nice little sheen on it. There it goes there, like a semi-gloss sheen on it. And it also made it so that the blackening doesn't come off in your hands. That flat coating that was on there actually would come off on your fingers. So they cleaned up pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with them. I also took and did the studs. These had already been blackened, but after I cut them, of course, the ends weren't. So I put the studs in and I blackened them. They came out pretty nice. And I have some hardened nuts to go all along with them. Now the pieces that I heat blued, you can see there's a little bit of a sheen on them. Now I didn't do anything with them. I did soak them in the sealing in the oil, and I didn't have to clean them up at all. So in some ways I actually prefer the heat bluing, and I got a pretty consistent color on them. I'm going to show you another heat blued project. This is a pair of V-blocks that I made. This was actually my first milling machine project back in high school, on the milling machine in the school shop. And I used a propane torch to blacken them, or to heat blue them. And these are over 50 years old, and I haven't done any more to them. They have not actually been real well taken care of, to be honest with you. They've been kicking around in the toolbox for years. And this is the clamp that I made. I milled out the blank and then bent it, forged it into shape, and I heat blued that also at the same time. And that, considering all, they have held up very, very well. Which begs the question, why not just heat blue everything? Well, that was one of the questions that did come up, and there are some issues with the heat bluing. First of all, these projects that I did heat blue were all made out of just either probably 1018 cold roll steel, so there was no heat treating involved. If you were going to be making something out of tool steel and heat treating it, then your heat bluing it may defeat the purpose of the temper that you would want to put on it. Depending on what you were looking for, it may go too far in drawing the temper out. So that was my main concern. I wanted to have an alternate method, and I wanted to practice it on something to be able to blacken a product, a tool, that ultimately would have been heat treated. So here's the hold down kit that I've been putting together for my smaller tools. I've got a small rotary table that takes smaller T-nuts. I built the pallet, which uses 6mm bolts, and so I'm putting together a kit for the smaller hold down parts. There's some materials that I picked up on eBay. This first box that I'm opening is a piece of A9 tool steel. Here it is here. It measures 1 inch and, let's see, it measures 1 3/8 inches thick by 2.5 by just a little over 4 inches. And I plan on making a tooling block out of this. I've been wanting to do it for a while, and I didn't have any material large enough, and although I ideally would like a larger one than this, for the size work I do, is probably going to be fine. Unfortunately, the 1, 2, 3 blocks I also have a 2, 3, 4 block, which as far as I'm concerned would be the ideal size for what I want to do, but the threads in this are so large that they don't lend themselves to typically what I want to do. And then I have a 2 by 4 by 6, a 246 block, and that has holes that are darn near 5/8 of an inch in it, and it's too big. I mean, it's good for setup, but it's no good for the precision grinding and so on that I want to be able to do with an item mounted on a tooling block. So that'll be a future project coming up. In a recent video, Tom of Ox Tools featured a fixture that he had made for chamfering edges on his surface grinder, and I immediately knew that I had to make one. I've got a piece of material here. It's a piece of 1018. Ideally it should be 2 inches wide by 4 inches tall, but this is 2 by 3. The only difference that will make is that it will sit a little bit lower on my mag base, and if I have longer parts, I'll just have to move this out closer to the edge of the mag base. So this piece of material will work out fine. My issue is how to mount it on the milling machine to cut the 45s. I have a pair of 45-degree V blocks, which it fits in very nicely. However, I have no way of holding it because I've only got a 5-inch vise, so I've got to mount it with the longitude axis on this piece in the x-axis. So I started looking around and I found a vise that I have been interested in for quite some time. I picked it up from Shars, and so let's unbox it. Got to give Shars credit. They do, for the most part, box their stuff pretty good. The box, inside of the box, a lot of padding. They're referring to this as a quick vise or a free machine vise, and it is a 6-inch vise that mounts directly on the bed of the mill. You get the pieces out here and get the box out of the way so I can show you. So this vise mounts on the bed. This is the stationary end, and this end is the moving end. So what I can do is mount the piece of stock. It's over length now. I have to cut it to length, but I can mount it in the mill like that. Well, I've had a change of plans. I've been looking for a piece of material to use, and I finally tracked something down. I went to my regular tool supplier and he didn't carry anything large enough. It's 2 by 4 by 7 inches long. So what I was able to get is a piece of structural hot rolled steel, 2 by 4 by 12 inches long. This thing is heavy. My mail delivery person was not a happy camper that day, but they get used to it after a while, especially when they're delivering to my house. tried to meet him out at the curb to pick it up, and it came on a second truck. They didn't have it on my regular mail delivery. This was another eBay find. So I can get the cardboard out of the way. So there it is. It's 2 by 4 by 12. So go over to the bandsaw and cut it to length. I purchased this Harbor Freight bandsaw a little over 3 years ago, and the first blade, that the original blade that came with it, held up really well, and I used that for over 2 years. And I had purchased a new blade, a spare one, when I got the saw. It said it was made in USA, looked decent enough, but I've never been satisfied with it since I put it on. I think the problem with it is the weld. I don't think the weld is straight or something, and I get a big thump in it that I don't care for. Well, I purchased a couple of Starrett blades for it, and the one that I'm going to put on now is a multi-tooth. It's a 1014 blade, because I'm going to be cutting that big piece of 2x4 steel. So I want a nice heavy coarse tooth blade on it to cut that. Okay, take and plug it back in and see if I've got it lined up right. Okay, that looks good. Let's put that block of steel in here and see how it works. Well, this is going to take a while. I'll bring you back when it's about done. I'm really happy with the finish on that Let me just take this burr off before it does some damage. See if we can see the finish on that. Great. Very happy with that blade. Let's see if I got it square or not. It's pretty good. Not too bad for a saw cut. This piece of material is already at nominal size of 2 by 4. I cut it about 1/8 of an inch long, so I got a little bit to square off the ends. But it's got very heavy mill scale on it, and I really don't want to machine the mill scale off because I don't want to lose that dimension. I will be doing some machining, but I am going to remove the mill scale chemically, and I've done this before and it worked very well. So I've got this pan which is just deep enough, and I laid a couple pieces of welding rod across the bottom so that the piece will be set up off the bottom and have room for the material to circulate under it. That fits in there perfect. I'm going to use, I've got just plain white distilled vinegar. I'm going to pour that in and cover it with the vinegar. The last time I did this, I let it soak overnight. Oh boy. Just gonna make it. Let's see if I can get just a little bit more. I wasn't figuring on those pieces of rod in the bottom holding it up as high as it did. Okay, got it covered. So I'm gonna let it soak, and I'm going to experiment with it, see how long it takes. I said the last time I did this, I let it soak overnight. I'll bring you back when we're ready to take it out and clean it up. Now this piece has been soaking in here for 24 hours now. And I think you can see that black mill scale is coming off. I physically haven't touched it at all yet. So let me get this drained off, and I'm going to take it over to the utility sink and clean it up. Well, that's not too bad. Get rid of most of the mill scale. Not too bad at all. That cleaned up pretty good. There's still a little bit of the heavy mill scale left on it, but this was really thick to begin with. And what was left by was actually soft, and it scraped right off. So I think I'm going to soak it again, see if I can get rid of that little bit that's left. So stay tuned for the complete video on that build. That's going to wrap up this edition of Shark Bits. Thanks for stopping by. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Don't forget to give me a big old thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video.